Welcome back to the Henry B. Gonzalez Convention Center. I'm Mark Kusenberger from Texas Sports Productions, and we are joined by head coach Steve Basore of the Brennan Bears, defending champions of District 29 6A. That 29 takes some getting used to, but you guys are used to that district championship stuff. Another great season. The most challenging season that's been seen in generations, really, across the state.
No doubt, yeah. I mean, the whole COVID thing made everything, I think, twice as hard. Honestly, and I was literally talking to my wife about it coming down here to the coaching convention and telling her, last year felt like 2 years in one, just because obviously all the prep and checks and this and that and everything you had to do. It really, we had our kids regimented from the minute they got on campus to the minute they left, and they had, normally preseason or pregame, they just sit in the locker room kind of where, at their locker wherever. We had them, 6 feet apart, assigned to a spot. This is where you're at. So it made it, just a lot of pre-planning. Just for simple things as get your jersey, pregame type stuff. So it was an adventure. I'm glad we got through it. I'm glad Texas, kind of cowboyed up and kept going when other people kind of fell back. But, turned out great for us. We had a few kids quarantine, that kind of a thing. But, they sat out their time and came back, and we were able to get through it, And I'm glad we did, because I think the more normal it could have been, the better for everybody, and that's what it turned out to be. So our kids were happy, our coaches were happy, our community was happy, and I think our city was, and our state for that matter. So good deal all the way around.
Starting about the beginning of August, maybe even earlier, it seemed like it was clear plans were going out the window, and it was hard to keep track of what was happening. When is the season going to start? Who are people going to play? What games are going to count? It was, do we have zones? Do we not have zones? Do we have contingency zones in 29-6A? It was a logistical insanity. And from your standpoint, I imagine you're trying to protect your players from a lot of that and try to let them enjoy their teenage years as best they can and play some football.
Well, as much as it confused you and me, you can imagine what that would do for a team or kids. Mm-hmm. So, like you said, we went north side, and I think Northeast followed, suit, kind of had a 2-in-1 schedule. And the plan was play the zone play first, unofficial, unannounced to the public. And then if things get canceled or whatever, we can fall back on, zone results. So we go to play O'Connor in the, what would have been the zone championship. But then, and so we win. So that technically makes us district champs. But if we play out the season, we could not be district champs. We could not make the playoffs still.
And O'Connor ended up missing the playoffs.
Yeah, exactly. So, it was weird because, as a coach, you're sitting there thinking, okay, if anything goes down, because basically it got to the point of, okay, any games get canceled, we're going to fall back on the zone. But if we get through it all and we play it all, then it's however it shows up at the end, So that was really strange, but I didn't want to give the kids what ifs, and all that kind of stuff. I just wanted them to focus on playing the game and, the goals go 1-0 each week and that kind of thing. So let them just play, do the thing, and let us worry about, standings and qualifications and all that kind of stuff. But again, it worked out that way, so it all took its course. But it was definitely strange to kind of, do we celebrate this? Do we not celebrate this? Do we tell them? Do we not tell them? And all that. So I let them know here and there, but we definitely didn't make a big deal about things because I was hopeful that it would turn out, full season and no cancellations. Unfortunately, it did. And a couple coaches had to really cowboy up on that too. One of the schools had, I think, their whole offensive staff quarantined. And they played through it, when, they could have canceled, and then it would have fell back to the zone play. So it's just crazy how it went down, from all aspects. And I didn't even think about that till you brought it up, but that was definitely a part of the process.
Well, you had a lot to process this last year, so that's certainly understandable. For all that we're dealing with, even in the best and most normal of circumstances, so many coaches, one game at a time. The most important game on the schedule is the one we're about to play. We have to focus on that. We have to respect our opponent, especially as deep as your district ended up being this last year. I can name half a dozen teams in 6A that couldn't stay on the field with Jay, and they ended up winless.
Right.
Gary had a fine team there. So that mentality must have really come in handy in 2020.
Yeah. And the whole season – the kids had to be kind of resilient. We told them, look, every week can change. We may get canceled, we may not. We'll keep you posted. But, we want you to just go about it as normal as possible and just assume we're playing, assume we're practicing, assume we're going to make it. And that was hopefully, their mindset from that point. And like I said, that put all the stress and concern on us to figure it out as administrators and coaches and that kind of thing. And it played itself out, for sure. But it was definitely different than your normal, we know we won it or whatever, like it had been in the past. That was a season unlike any other.
Yeah, the district championship, plenty to be proud of right there. Tell us what impressed you most about your players in 2020, just fielding a team, keeping a season going with no real cancellations beyond the adjustments you had to make to the schedule given the postponement of the season 1 month.
Well, I'd have to say I'm incredibly proud of our team and the kids because we were able, and that was obviously the goal, to keep them pretty much focused on, come to practice, game plan this week. Like you were saying, let's go 1-0 this week. And it's normal. Everything's going to be normal outside of we got to check in. Are you okay? Are you having symptoms? Oh, you're feeling sick, stay home, all that kind of stuff. But we didn't have kids take advantage of, I can tell coach I don't feel good today and not show up, and stuff like that. We had, maximum participation. And then if a kid was, hey, coach, I got a cough, I'm not feeling good, my head hurts, we're like, hey, stay home, go get tested. And, a few of them obviously tested positive, so they became quarantined and all that kind of stuff. But, the kids stayed honest and resilient and just hardworking and never lost sight of what we were doing. And for whatever reason it was, I'm thankful because I think it made it as easy as possible on them. And that's good, because it's hard enough for a 16, 17, 18-year-old kid to go out and perform and do all these things you expect out of them, and then when you add other stresses that aren't really related to the game, I don't think that's fair to the kid or the team. So we definitely wanted to keep it as simple as possible to keep them as focused as possible. And I would say we had 95 to 100% participation all week throughout the time. And then again, if there was an issue, kids told us up front so it didn't become a blown-up deal and, you got to shut everything down. I think at one point we lost 10 kids for a game, and then I think we lost 6 kids for a game, and then beyond that it was 1 or 2. So there were 2 games there that were kind of, wow, we're going to have to play without a few of the guys. But other than that, it didn't overly affect us, so it was great.
And for all that, you won your district by 2 games, and the playoffs are going to be interesting anyway because that number 29 6A matters a lot in Region 4 6A because that means in the first round you're playing a Laredo school or perhaps Eagle Pass and Del Rio, and then you're playing a Valley school in the second round if you get there. And now instead of we'll neutral site at the Alamo Dome or flip a coin with a Northeast school, now you're trying to figure out, well, is A&M Kingsville feasible? It's Tell us a little bit about getting used to that because we're talking about football, but all of your sports had to deal with stuff like that.
Yeah, and that's what I was going to tell you. At first it felt weird to be 29 because usually we're 27 or 28, and usually we bounce back, realignment, this and that. But we knew with Brandeis and Clark, potentially going to Northeast, they were probably going to be 28. We were probably going to be 29. Of course, the worst kept secret or the best kept secret, however you want to say it, with the UIL. Honestly, to me, it's frustrating as a coach because you really don't know till they announce it that morning. Mm-hmm. And, I mean, based on where they put you, all heck can break loose. We'll put it that way. Yeah. And so you're hoping that what you're hearing is what's going to happen, and fortunately it did. But, yeah, we're pretty successful in a lot of sports. And instead of, like you said, playing, at Northeast Stadium or a Judson Stadium or a Northside Stadium, it's let's meet halfway in Corpus, let's meet halfway at Kingsville, let's meet in Laredo, and so everything kind of became a lot of road stuff, especially with the other sports. I think the best thing that football did and the UIL did was give the district champ, and the top seed for each thing, you're playing at home, and just kind of eliminated all the what ifs, Mm-hmm. So if you're number 2, you're on the road, if you're number 1, you're at home, and really made the first round easier. And then as 32 teams leave, now there's more venues, and it makes it easier kind of going and moving forward. But it was certainly nice to have a home game, week 1, and not have to try to figure all that out. And some coaches are real easy to deal with, and some maybe not so much, and that takes a lot of the gamesmanship out of it in terms of flipping and addresses and all that kind of stuff. So that was nice. But it definitely, is a different roadmap, to the playoffs for sure. But at the end of the day, Westlake is probably the favorite, and they're probably the favorite again. And our goal is hopefully to win the region and all that kind of deal. So, to be the man, you got to beat the man, like we said before. And right now it's Westlake, so we got to try to hopefully get to that game and try to hopefully find a way to win it. And that's a tall order for sure.
You have a lot of players back from the squad that was so successful last year. Ashton DeBose, the quarterback, springs to mind, and I know there are a bunch of others. You always have talented squads at Brennan. Now you have experienced squads that have worked together under the most challenging of circumstances. Tell us about some things you're looking forward to with the 2021 edition of the Brennan Bear football.
Well, the biggest thing, like you said, is really the experience factor. And I think as a head coach, now that I've been doing it longer, that is such a big deal. And I used to not put as much weight into it, but kids that have been through the gauntlet before, it just pays dividends. And last year we have a lot of kids back this year because we played a ton of sophomores, and I don't know what the exact number is, but I think we started 12 or 13 sophomores. Well, that's 12 or 13 guys that went through the fire, got to the third round, won a district championship, and really got a feel for what varsity is. But now they've got 2 years with that instead of, they're coming back as seniors and they're out of here. So the fact that there'll be juniors rather than seniors this year is really a big deal. And then, they take such a developmental jump. Most kids, everybody's different. Some take it very early, some take it very late, but most of them take it between sophomore and junior. So a lot of our kids that played sophomore were kind of, boys, and now maybe they're young men. And that is different in size, strength, speed, knowledge, experience, all those factors in a game. And so to have a team that's been through the grinder, had those experiences, it's similar to when we were really good, kind of when we opened. We played a ton of sophomores in 2011, then we had a lot of success in 2012, and then we were fortunate to go to the championship in 2013. And this is a similar kind of deal because again we're back to played a bunch of sophomores last year, got them for 2 years, they're pretty good. So how well are they going to develop? How big can they play in the big games, and can you beat a Westlake or somebody like that to really make some noise and try to get into the semifinal game and that kind of stuff. So I'm excited about what it can be, but at the end of the day, it's back to like we started with. You got to go 1-0 this week, and you got to focus on who you're playing now. And we like to have a roadmap for where we want to go, and all roads lead to Dallas and AT&T, but you can't get there if you don't take care of business in week one. And that's what I tell our guys. It's all about Reagan right now, and our scrimmage is our scrimmage, and we've scrimmaged East Central for a while, but that first game's critical, and we want to win that game, and then we play Clemens. Who's a pretty solid team too. So it's just a matter of staying focused, take it step by step, week by week. Hopefully go 1-0. Hopefully that adds up to 10-0, and now you're hitting the playoffs, top seed, so on and so forth. And hopefully things can play out into your favor. And then obviously staying healthy is critical. So, but yeah, you mentioned Ashton DeBose specifically, and I think hopefully he'll have a monster season. I mean, he had a pretty monster season last year, but he's bigger, stronger, faster, smarter. And he's just better. And he's significantly better, in my opinion. So that in and of itself is a good deal. But, we lost Jalen Spells, who was a great receiver, and he was definitely our number one last year. But we feel like we're 6 or 7 deep at receiver. We feel like our running back is probably an upgrade. A lot of our offensive line is back. So offensively we have 8 guys back. So, there wasn't a lot to replace there, and all those dudes are battle-tested now. So that's really big. So I think our offense will be as good as it's been in a while, if pushing ever. And then defensively, I think we have 6 guys back, so there's a few holes we got to fill and all that kind of stuff. But having kids back is a big deal, and that's where all the preseason rankings come from and stuff. But we got some good ones, and you either play sophomores because they're good or because you have to, and we mainly played them because they were good, and that's a good sign.
Well, that's been the way it's been early on. Of course, that first year as a new program, you had all the challenges, and we've discussed some of those before, like snakes on the football field and different things like that thankfully are a thing of the past at Brennan. I hope you're not dealing with snakes on the football field still.
We actually had one a couple 2-3 years ago, and this time it was up on the main field on the track, and it was a coral snake.
Oh, ooh!
And the kids found it, and they just thought it was funny, and so I went over, to investigate, and then I'm like, That's a coral snake. I'm like, everyone, get away. And all of a sudden, when they found out it's poisonous, you thought a bomb went off. So,
I thought maybe Eddie Salas over at Harlan because they're more remote now.
Yeah.
The snakes are his problem, but
I haven't talked to Eddie about the snake factor, but
the only snakes I know you want to deal with are the Reagan Rattlers in
Right.
that opening week, and I'd like to talk about that, but also the fact that you've mentioned Westlake twice in this conversation. So many coaches, the next game is all they ever care to talk about and maybe even think about, but some of the more ambitious programs will, there is a king of the mountain here, and the Westlake program has set a very high standard,
very high.
And clearly your team aspires to meet that. Tell us a little bit about what impresses you as a coach, what you might see that we as fans don't see in terms of what Westlake does so well, and what the Brennan Bears plan to do to close that gap. And
well, obviously Coach Dodge is legendary. So you got a legendary head coach, and the defensive coordinator, Tony Salazar, I believe his name, is phenomenal. So they're amazing on offense. They're amazing on defense. I think last time we played them was 2 years ago, and they had punted. We were playing them in the second round, so week 12.
Right.
And they had punted 10 times the whole season.
Right.
So that means they either turned it over, which they generally don't do, or they scored. And, when they're scoring 50 points a game, and I was talking to Coach Hamilton, from Reagan, now that you mentioned it, this year, because I said, hey, Westlake might go big, and, Reagan's a big playoff school, and we're a small playoff school. And I was like, I hope they do, just from, they're really, really darn good. So we have the ultimate respect for them. But, I mean, they're exceptionally well coached. They're very athletic. They just do everything, well. The kids are highly motivated. They work out all year long. They're very intelligent kids. They're very intelligent coaches. So they've got a really good mix, and when you put all that together, it's a championship team. And for them, it's 2 state championships. But I think some people forget they had injury, the year before that. They lost their starting quarterback. They lost their 2 starting running backs or vice versa. But at the end of the day, they lost their offensive backfield, and they still went to the semifinals. And to me, if they stayed healthy, they win. This would be their 3rd. So they're the standard. And, you always got to chase the standard. And again, you can't be the standard unless you beat the standard. So in the back of our minds, that's how good we got to be. And if we want to be that good, we better be working really hard today if that in opportunity is going to present itself.
You have a lot of players coming back. Reagan has a lot of players coming back, too. I wouldn't be surprised if you go to their scrimmage to scout them out and say, wait a minute, I know that quarterback and I know that running back and I know half those line. And
Yep.
So what are you looking forward to about that matchup? Because both those teams are going to learn a lot about each other, and it may not be fun that night for one of the teams, but there's bound to be a benefit.
Well, I think what you just said is exactly right. You want to play big games, get prepared, but someone's going to win and someone's going to lose, and obviously you don't want to be the team that's losing that one. But Reagan's a great program. We've played them, I think, 5 years in a row now, and it's just better to meet tough competition early so you can feel yourself out and get a good feel. And like you said, they've got a ton of kids back. The running back's amazing. The quarterback's amazing. They got 300-pound linemen, up front coming back. They're really sound defense.
Who they'll run out on a sweep I've seen.
Yeah.
I don't think that's fair. Pulling a 300-pound guard is not fair, but they do it with Zudnik.
And there he goes. And defensively they're sound. Coach Hamilton does a great job. I think he leads the defense primarily too. And so they're a strong defensive team similar to us. They can be explosive on offense. And really, I think special teams and turnovers, cliche, but that has really kind of determined the outcomes of almost every game we played with them. And usually when you got 2 fairly evenly matched teams, it's going to come down to those 2 factors. And early when we were playing them, we were the ones that were turning it over and or making blunders. And then last couple of years, it was kind of turned around. And hopefully that trend continues. But same thing. Reagan is a premier program. Coach Hamilton does an amazing job. Coach Wessel did an amazing job before him. And they're going to be a quality team every year. They're going to play hard. They're going to be big. They present a lot of challenges for a Brennan Bear type team, so but it's something to get excited about and something to prepare for, and it should be a heck of a game. It always is. And I don't think next year, this year is going to be no different from last year or any year before. It should be highly competitive and probably a fourth quarter type deal.
Well, Coach, congratulations on another great season, getting it done and winning a district championship. Good luck this coming year. And with any luck, I will see you for a regular season football game late in August. And that will be a great thing. Thanks a lot,
Yeah,
Coach.
awesome. I appreciate you guys and everything y'all do and having us out.
That's Steve Basore, head coach of the Brennan Bears. I'm Mark Kusenberger. We'll be back with more on Texas Sports Productions.